All right, Bo.
Yes, sir.
We both seen it. All
Hmm.
right. So let's talk about it. I want to start at the very top. The overall arcing question, okay? What do you think this movie was more about when you watched it? Was this movie more about wrestling or was this movie more about a family?
This movie to me, and as it's no secret to a lot of people in the chat, we're at heart wrestling fans. Like that's
100% for sure.
mainly what we talk about. But this this movie, you don't need to be a wrestling fan to get in and just go see the movie. And the message behind it is how close this family was. Like, and look, I'll bring her up again. Nicole has seen the Dark Side of the Ring episode, so she knew the premise. And even there were certain parts of the movie I'm like, this has nothing to do with wrestling. This is just how close this family was and the bond that they had with wrestling in it. So you don't have to be a wrestling fan to go see this one.
I 1000% agree. I said this movie was about family. When you make film or you do any type of film or editing or you're working on those types of projects, one of the core things you do is you take what the meaning of what your movie is or your documentary or your TV show or whatever, and you consolidate it down to as few as words as possible. And Jamie said it best in the comments: tragedy and family. And those two words, unfortunately, in the Von Erich history, go hand in hand because of the sad. So, kind of start at the top with it. They did just straight into it with the career of Fritz Von Erich. They don't touch on a lot of where he came from
Yeah, they don't
before he
touch on
took.
his gimmick.
Yeah, I felt like that was something that they left out on purpose, given the nature of what's happening right now in the world.
Yes.
Him adopting a Yahtzee gimmick because he felt like that would get him the most heat on the road was definitely a ballsy move, even in the 1950s. I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah.
Like, you
You
know,
had to be a
coming,
tough son of a bitch to have that gimmick.
so he through his successes, he became the booker and promoter that ran WCCW, and that's where we pick up with the movie. They talk about the sons, David and Carrie, Kevin and Michael. They kind of look at each son's lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look at the movie in a couple sections based on how everything happened with it, right?
Yeah.
So we don't get introduced to Carrie yet at all because they start talking about, what was going on with the Olympics and everything and with Russia and
Building that
Moscow.
up.
Yeah, they're building all of it. So we haven't even seen Carrie at this point. But you see how important it is to the Von Erichs with wrestling, the way Fritz runs WCCW and everything. They open it big, dude. What was it like? The very first thing you saw in the whole thing, a wrestling match, and they throw you Gino Hernandez and Bruiser Brody, like right out of the gate.
Hats off to Dolph Ziggler's brother, Regina Hernandez.
Dude, great. I will say every real wrestler in this movie knocked it out of the park.
Perfect. Don't fuck
Yeah.
with my hair too much, kind of thing. That was
Mhm.
from what you understand. That was really Gino. I think the guy. This is just me. Might be a nitpick. The guy who played Bruiser could have been a little taller,
Yeah.
but it was just to get thrown right in there. We're like, okay, these guys tied up with the best. Like,
I was going to touch on the idea of doing a Guerrero's movie. A24 wants to do a biopic for Eddie, and Chavo helped and consulted with this one, and he's already said he would help and consult with one for Eddie if that's the direction they went with it.
if they do it the way they did Iron Claw, then I'm okay with it.
100%.
Make it about Eddie. Don't make it about wrestling.
Bingo. So the first tragedy that happened was David, and they built that story up, and I felt like when they built Kevin getting his shot against Harley and then never getting his rematch, and then David getting the chance and all of that built with that. I said yesterday, I was talking to Matt about it, and the irony is me, you, and him were all three watching the movie at the same time.
Yeah, that's how it somehow weirdly worked out like that.
But somehow weirdly we were all three sitting in our respective theaters at the same time. They did a good job showing how different the brothers are, especially on the mic. The attention to detail was incredible. I was going to touch on that. When you look at the way they built that up because Kevin was never a good talker, but Kevin also was the one the quickest to get out of the business as well. And he said in the Dark Side of the Ring, him leaving and being a family man was the reason he's still alive. Had he not left wrestling, the Von Erich curse would have got him too. He was like, that's the only reason I'm still here. So we go there. Kevin gets just taken for a walk. I love the fact that they put the small details like that in this movie as a wrestling fan and as a wrestling historian, because back in the day, especially in that late 70s, early 80s push, like those guys were fucking ruthless, man. And Harley Race looking at one of the young kids going, all right, kid, get ready. We're going for a walk. And then throwing your ass out of the ring and then laying you out. Like that kind of stuff happened in real life. How good of a job did you think they did in showing you what wrestling was like then? Because the drastic difference between the kayfabe era and the territories of 1980 versus where we're at in 2023. Do you think they did a good job of portraying how wrestling was then for the Von Erichs?
Oh, yes. Yeah, because like someone like Harley Race, like I've watched his matches and I've listened to numerous like interviews about him, was one of them. All right, you want to be a wrestler? I'm going to hit you.
Yeah.
Like there was like, he didn't hold punches. They were still like, and I know it's a little further in the movie, but the scene where Kevin is sitting down with his future wife and she goes, it's fake. And he goes, there's nothing fake about it.
Yeah.
That ties that scene is perfectly described, the Harley Race one, because it's like he even looks at Fritz afterwards. He goes, what happened? He goes, I've never been slammed that hard on the concrete.
Yeah, he goes, it knocked me for a loop. He goes, for a minute, I literally couldn't move. And Fritz was like, dude, just how hard did they portray him? He just looked at him and he said, you always get up, son. You always keep going. Like, how the fuck? Your kid is wrapped up in ice bandage packs and ace bandages because he just took a straight flat back suplex on open concrete. And you're just like, you got to get up and keep going, son. Like,
yeah.
Thank you for the bits, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
So David's untimely demise, going to everything that happened with him in Japan, and even the way they portrayed it in Dark Side of the Ring, it was very unexpected, right? My question is for you. I said that David's story, if there was one piece that needed that little bit of wrestling added to it, was David, because David was the underdog. David definitely wasn't Kerry. David wasn't Kevin, but he got a lucky break because Fritz got pissed.
Built like them.
He was big. Fritz said that he booked Texas Red, who eventually became Mean Mark Calloway, eventually became the Undertaker. He said he booked Texas Red because he looked like David. He said he's big, he's tall, he's lanky. You know what I mean? David had the charisma and size. David, he could talk, but he wasn't as
photogenic wrestler.
Yeah. I think David was the best talker of the three brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Kerry this is going to sound weird. Kerry pre-accident was the best worker.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to take into effect, Kerry also had the most successful career post WCCW.
Yes.
Going on to, SummerSlam. We'll get to Kerry in a second. But I would say David overall was a better worker and better talker than Kevin, both in the movie and in real life.
Oh, yeah. And they put that over when David got in the ring and took the mic from Kevin.
And then he apologized. He was like, brother, I thought I was doing the right thing.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's cool. So I felt like David's story needed a little bit more because the fight from underneath, underdog, that was Kevin Von Erich's rise, getting to Japan, the untimely demise. I said Fritz was a hard ass. He looked at his boys after David passed away, and he said, "No tears today. Take those sunglasses off. I don't want to see any tears. Like, we're not here to mourn. This family won't let, defeat be what defines us," and all of those great leadership roles. Do you think the movie, without us not being there, did the movie portray Fritz to be harder than what he was in real life? Or do you think this was the realest it could be because Kevin stood there by the director and said, look, this is how he okayed everything about it? So you have to think there was some realism here, right? Was Fritz this hard on his family in real life?
I think he was hard. I don't know if he was this hard. I think they built him a little bit harder to show that how much of a family man how much success he wanted for his boys. They wanted them to be successful, because in a lot of interviews, people go that Fritz was a really great guy and like loved his family. I think you needed that hard father figure to push the boys.
100%. They reference this throughout the movie a bunch. The mother says it, Fritz says it, a few of the other people, and like a few of the boys say it. They were like, sort it out between your brothers. Talk to the boys about it. Let them handle it themselves.
Yeah. Just like the mom did when she goes, that's why you have brothers.
Bingo, at the very beginning, he was like, Mom, I think Dad's too hard on Mikey. And she was like, talk to your brothers about it. That's between y'all.
Yeah.
So another question is, after David passed, okay, we'll get to Michael's unfortunate passing. And in Dark Side of the Ring, they talked about it because in the movie, all right, everything is nice and calm and collected.
Yes.
The mother's sitting there stoic, very just hard face. There's no tears in this family. In real life, the Dark Side of the Ring, it was very apparent that the mother was hysterical. They said she ran out into the field when they found Mikey's body in her nightgown and stuff.
In the woods and
yeah. Would it have been okay to display that kind of emotion? Because it was there in real life. Why wouldn't they give us that in the movie?
I don't know. That's a good one, dude. I mean, I would have liked to see more emotion from the mother. I almost felt like the mother was a afterthought character and pushed more to the background than she probably was in real life. I think it was more focused on the dad and the brothers and not as much the mom.
The mom was almost like
Michael was the mama's boy.
100%. Well, he was the youngest. He was also musical. He didn't want to wrestle. The only reason he got into wrestling was because his music career wouldn't take off. And he knew it would be easy money because he was a fucking Von Erich. If my last name was Von Erich, I wouldn't be a fucking chef.
Yeah, no. My last name is Von Erich. God, you'd see me somewhere.
Exactly. I would be working, as often as I could get booked. I skipped over a key point in the movie because I wanted to handle the brothers separately. Now it's time to talk about Carrie. Carrie Von Erich had the longevity of the career. I want to put Jamie's comment back up. Carrie had the longevity of the career, but my issue with Carrie in the wrestling sense is his career did this. He had ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys, where sometimes he was real good, but sometimes he was real fucking bad too. Okay? This is where Kevin got him. Carrie's whole career did this. Kevin's career did this. He went up and then he plateaued. And then he went up and then he plateaued. And then he went up and then he would plateau. And I feel like that's almost what made Kevin a better wrestler, even though he didn't get the break Carrie did. Was because Kevin, he was more consistent, but he was also a family man. He stopped taking tours. He stopped wanting to fight for the title. He was wrestling to make money. I think Fritz was that guy. Kind of give me that thoughts on how guys like him and Stu Hart were. I think Stu Hart and the Hart family would be another great biopic family to document like the dungeon and stuff. Great idea there.
Don't focus on Owen. Focus on the dungeon.
Yeah, when Stu was coming out, fucking living in a shanty cabin and going to the YMCA to stay warm during the winter.
Stu trained, and you could bring the guy back who played Fritz, and Stu trained Fritz.
Bingo.
Tie the movies in, man.
this is one of my things. And I went into it. I had somebody tell me, a friend from the NWA, go, Will, when you go to watch the movie, don't watch it like a historian. One, I was really honored that they considered me a wrestling historian at this point. So I was like,
Pat on the back, buddy.
I'll give it. They were like, don't watch it as a wrestling historian. They were like, some things are going to be a little off, some things are going to be a little wonky, but don't watch it like that. Watch it as a fan. And I was like, absolutely, 1000% I can do that. Okay. So this was my biggest issue with it. The way the movie portrayed it. Okay.
Mhm.
David passed away. They had the funeral. Fritz flipped the coin, which actually happened in real life.
Yes, it did.
That was 100% factual. The three boys sat right there, and he said he didn't want to have to make the decision. Fate will, and he flipped a coin. We all know that Kerry got this shot. So the way they made it look, okay, the inconsistencies were very minor. He didn't affect how he felt about it. I didn't either. And that's one thing that I'm getting to. And one of them was in the movie, the way they portrayed it was funeral, flipping the coin, the match, winning the title, having the accident. Those things were gapped out by he won the match. And then when he dropped the belt, it was 23 days later. And then his wreck was almost 2 weeks after that. It was like June 6th. You know what I mean?
No.
So it was like 6 weeks later that he had his accident. The movie made it seem like, it happened. He won the belt. He had the accident and was gone. You know what I mean? That's not how it happened. You and I watched the match where he went back to Japan and dropped the belt to Flair 3 weeks later. Because we watched the Von Erich match, and then we watched where he won the title. Then we watched it where he dropped it.
Yeah.
Because that's when we found the ridiculous Japanese commentary.
Yeah, that's when we did. They I think they rushed carries. And I understand you have run times or anything. That's going to lead me into another question for you.
Yeah.
I think they rushed carries because Kerry had a kid. He was married. He was divorced by then. There was a lot more went into his tragic ending than just the injury. Would A20 have been a little bit, if they were going to focus on the family and building that story, could you have seen this as maybe like a 6-part series? Or maybe a 4-part series focusing 1 hour episode on each?
I think for what they were doing, the movie was great. I'll tell you when we get to the end here in a second. We'll give our overall ratings. But for me personally, I think what they were trying to execute with this movie, they did a great job doing it. I think if they wanted to do an episodic television show with this cast around what happened with the Von Erich family, zero questions that they could probably write it out and execute it and do everything with it. So yes and no. The movie was amazing. I wouldn't change almost anything about it. Having a television show with this cast and writers, but doing a multi-episodic thing, 100% would get behind that too, because I think that would be cool. So after, the unfortunate thing, Kerry had a wild spiral down that they, again, felt slightly rushed. The same way they blew through David's underdog story, Kerry spiraled down they went from winning the IC title to him getting moved to house shows to him, unfortunately, like that. And again, this was a point where he spent almost 3 years of his career in WWE.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It wasn't just a snap of the finger. He won the IC title, okay, within his first year of being in the company. When he had his downward spiral later was almost 3 years down the road. They left they took Kerry's entire WWE career and brought it down to a 20-second clip in the background where he won the IC title against Mr. Perfect.
Yeah. Which I was pretty cool that A24 got the permission to use the actual match footage.
I did love that. Every time they showed match footage on a TV or a monitor, even after the movie, it was real match footage.
Yeah.
So Kerry, unfortunately, we get to where he's gone. We see the struggle of Kevin trying to find his footing in wrestling. After that, we see him wrestle with his other cousins and stuff. Ultimately, Kevin steps away to focus on his family. And again, I say that in the Dark Side of the Ring, he said that saved his life. Now, this gets us to the very end of the movie. This was the scene that got everybody, Bo. When the boat comes around and he pays the token to the ferry keeper, and the brothers are waiting there, and he asks, "Where's Jack Jr.?"
Yeah.
And it's "You must be my big brother."
Yeah.
Like,
I looked over at Nicole when we were watching this movie, and she, by the time Carrie, in that very end scene where Kevin picks him up, she is just in tears. And when he walks out the house and he's jumping on his feet, that's when I realized the symbolization. Okay, this is his heaven.
yeah.
And then he takes the boat and he's got the coin,
Yeah.
puts the coin down, almost like there's no more choosing, Kevin. You're the guy kind of thing.
Yeah.
But to step there to see all of them and them to give Jack Jr. more than just a lunch table scene was so emotionally hitting.
It
Because
landed, dude, big time.
just like from the beginning of the movie to the end, this was just about brothers being together.
100%. I think that ending scene closed it because you knew how important those four brothers were. And then at the end of the movie, for the first thing for him to ask is, "Where's Jack Jr.?" You know, that showed the brother he didn't even get to really know, if at all.
No, he wasn't. He was, I think the only one alive at the time was Kevin.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, like none of them got to meet him. So, like, for that to be the first thing shows you how important, like, family was, you know?
There is, and we've said so much good about it, but there is one little negative thing I have to say about it.
What's that?
They fully, and I know it's been stated in numerous interviews, it was runtime. The film couldn't take another one. You fully skipped over Chris. Like, there was no mention of Chris in the movie. Like, and I kind of feel a little let down because Chris was very important. Chris wanted to be like his brothers. He idolized his brothers. So to see that happen kind of let me down a little bit. That's my only negative thing about the movie.
I think that would have, if they did a TV show, that would have been the only way they could have worked that part of the story in.
Yeah. I mean, Chris went real quick. He was 21, suffered asthma, brittle bones. So, I mean, I can understand why they skipped it, but still it
was another Von Erich, and they just completely left it out.
Yeah.
But much like the fact that they couldn't put Chris in that, we don't have much time to talk about Chris here because this is the end of the episode. Bo, that was amazing. Like, I'm really hyped about the next one. So, what did we decide? What's next week's movie?
It's going to be Gran Turismo.
Gran Turismo.
It kind of hits on both of our fandoms of video games and movies. So I thought it'd be a perfect pick for our second one.
Hell yeah. So everybody, this coming week, watch Gran Turismo. Then we're going to kind of talk about it. Do this all over again next week. Bo, but that leads us here, man. It's the fun part. Tell us what's going on. Plug your stuff. I know you got a show later tonight, so tell us all about it.
Yeah. I have NXT on tap where we're going to review NXT New Year's Evil and all the fun happenings of that. Thank you, Jamie. I will be on the Wolfpack podcast Wednesday night. And just like last year, man, trying to grow my Twitter following. So follow me on Twitter at JaxBo2020.
Nicole says she wants to see Gran Turismo too. So everybody can watch it for next week.
It is on Netflix.
Yeah, it
Ladies
is
and
on
gentlemen,
Netflix.
just to let you know, I will try to give you the source to where you can watch the movie for either the cheapest or free.
As always, check the links in our description, guys. If you want to get in on the Discord, check that one. That'll be a direct link to all the hosts and producers for Rivet City Radio, Off the Top, Botch Shots and Chair Shots, all of that fun stuff. We've got a new merch link. I've got to get the new merch link hooked up, but it's my spreadsheet with Off the Top. You'll be able to find all of the new Botch Spots and Chair Shot stuff. We've got hats and hoodies and mugs and all kinds of cool stuff. So I'll get the updated merch link out there. One of the most important things is the Amazon Prime subscription. You have a Prime Gaming subscription. Give it to us. Give it to the Wolfpack Podcast. Give it to Off the Top Media. Give it to anybody as long as Jeff Bezos doesn't get it. He has far too much money. You got to remember to hit the like, follow, the subscribe button, and do all of those things like, follow, subscribe. But what does it do?
It helps boost the algorithm and find new listeners.
You fucking right it does. Bo, you got anything for the class?
Happy New Year's, guys. Hope it's a great one.
Happy New Year's, guys. We love you guys. We're back. Gran Turismo next week. You guys have homework. Other than that, watch Nerdy News, then watch NXT on tap. And then when NXT is on tap, they're going to raid back over here because we're doing Botch Spots and Chair Shots After Dark, and we're going to be talking about the life of one Vincent Kennedy McMahon. It's going to be a big fucking episode.
Yeah.
Big episode. More than likely 2 parts. But that's it. I love you guys.
Love y'all.
Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.